Good day, Barra fans. Today we're going to talk about fan wiring for my 2000 Mustang to get my Barra FG motor working. Tune in to find out how I'm doing that.
All right, essentially under here is your CCRM. So let's see if I can get the camera aimed there. That guy. Big box here. Okay. One of the items that you're going to be up against is how to hook up your fan, and there's a bunch of stock wiring, including relays, for your fan. And after reading some diagrams, for my V6, the stock fan input wire, which is just supply 12 volts, and then this CCRM will distribute the power basically at a much higher amperage using the circuitry built into the car. A lot of people use relays and stuff. I'm probably going to end up adding a relay here to make it so that the stock computer in the car can run the fan, and my my Barra PCM can run the fan. But I wanted to prove that that pin was what I thought it was, so I rigged up the fan to run. You can see it there. It's just sitting there, hooked up to the stock wiring, and we'll just see it blow. We'll actually hear it when it runs. So I've jumpered in a wire off of pin 13, and I'm just going to supply it to 12 volts here. And you can hear it run. Pretty good fan. I don't know what our beeping was. Oh, I know what our beeping was. Continuity tester timing up. So I did a bunch of stuff. I went and found a diagram for this CCRM. I want to understand the power inputs to it. It has a constant power source, so the moment you hook your battery up, this thing's live. And it has a power source that runs when you turn your key on, and it has power outputs all over the place. One of them's to the air conditioner, one of them's to the fuel pump. So one of my thoughts here is, since I'm not going to be using the fuel pump circuitry, I have a relay I could use for something else to run the Barra. And so we'll keep that in mind. But for now, the fan output is very useful, because I can just use this wire hooked up from the fan itself to the Barra PCM. It has two fan speeds. I'm probably going to hook them both up to this to make sure that I don't overheat. If I had a GT CCRM, it is a 2-speed fan, and I even thought about briefly swapping my GT CCRM onto this, but it's a lot of trouble when I could just add another circuit and buy a 2-speed fan and run the fan at 2 speeds. So, or I might swap this single-speed fan into my GT. I don't know. I might buy an upgraded fan for the GT, take its 2-speed fan, put it here, hook up that second speed to the CCRM. Who knows? But for now, to just have cooling for my Barra, I have enough. And I'm going to tap into this pin number 13. By the way, the numbers are right on the side of the connector. You can see all your numbers 1 through 12, 13 through 24. So there's no guesswork here. That's how that's done. I'm going to wire in the relay. I need power, and I need this to get warmed up. Set this on the transmission. What the heck? Got my wire strippers So basically, my fan input wire is coming from my Barra PCM. I've chosen this wire because it's purple, and my fan wires are also purple, a pair of them. But in my case, I only got one. So I'm going to wire in this relay, which I've already labeled the wires, done some testing. If you buy these relays, they come labeled pins 85, 86, 87, and 87A, and 30. In my case, when there's no power to this relay, it defaults to sending power from the PCM. Where's it at here? PCM to CCRM. No. Fan to CCRM. Car PCM to fan request. So basically, this comes from the car and goes out to the CCRM, which triggers the fan. So with no power, this thing is a dead switch. It's already on. The car PCM can say, "Hey, I want the fan on." One of these wires is called fan input to CCRM. So let's pretend that it has power. At that point, the power from the CCRM, from the Barra PCM, will trigger the relay and also run through to this wire. And then the final one is the ground. Okay, so this is basically an override switch. It says the Barra PCM can say, I don't care if the car PCM is on or not, I'm going to turn on the fan. And that allows me to have my cake and eat it too. There's probably some really nifty way to trigger the CCRM and use some other circuit in there to do what I'm trying to do. But I have a bunch of these, and I understand them. That's the most important part of the situation. Now, adding to the fun here, need a little light on this subject. I've already isolated the input line, and through my test of the fan, I know which wire. It's pin number 13 on the CCRM that I'm going to cut and intercept this signal with. So here we go. Using an ordinary pair of scissors here, cut back on this insulating tape some around the CCRM wiring. I just want to have more room. That's all I want here. I don't need a whole lot. I just need enough to get to my pin number 13 wire, which I've clearly identified already. Alright, so it's this guy I tapped into him and tested with, and I just want to cut that wire in a really conspicuous location where I can work on it. Well, that's cute. Fully did not expect that at all. He must be on. That's interesting. Alright. All bets are off. That's super interesting. No, I didn't expect that. The good news is That's weird. There's no good news here. Something in the CCR must make it so that when this line is cut, that's interesting. I don't know why that worked that way. But we're just going to have normal operation. This must be how they trigger the fan. When the car is warm and sitting and the key is off. An interesting feature. Not going to question it right now. I know what I want. I'm just going to wire this stuff up to what I want. So I've already labeled my stuff. Then car PCM fan request is this end of the circuit. And that going brought along some heat shrink installation. I want that up further. This may not be thick enough to cover fan request. Ground, nope. Fan input CCRM. Okay, that's one. Car PCM fan request. Let's do that wire first, shall we? This and a little solder. 10,000 lines. Do the solder. Let's solder that baby up there. That's good. Bring our heat shrink tube down. Hopefully cover it. Not going to cover it very well. Don't worry about it too much. Wrap it with tape. That was pretty cool. In fact, with the key on, the fan ran with that cut. Must be I bet it's a fail safe. That is a fail safe. That's interesting. Alright. So we have that in place. 2 CCRM is this one. We're going to rig that one up. Okay. I didn't do it right. Shrink wrap too. One of the more annoying things about these aftermarket one of the more annoying things about this kit, these relay you bought. Hello?
I made it.
I'll be right there. gotta get this done in the next 5 minutes. All right, get the solder on there. Good. It's gonna suck because basically this wiring is gonna look like. Too bad I don't have a pair of scissors nearby like these. Cut that wire. That tape. Goes on a lot. I'm not sure what causes me to talk to myself so much when I'm doing a coyote swap or a swap like this one or any kind of car work. But I think it's kept me sane because it's some insane stuff. There is my fan stuff. Now when I turn the key, the fan shouldn't come on. Let's make sure that's the case. Yay! The fan didn't come on. Alright. Now, we have a ground wire, which I know there's a CCRM ground. Look it up. Depends on when you tap into it. Ground is 1015. This is the other side of this connector. Great. So labeled that first. One of the things I've learned over the years is you can't trust any of this wiring color-wise. And I don't really want to make it as a chassis ground, so at this point in the game, we're just going to have to pause the video, take that connector apart, get to the ground. So this one is going to go to the ground, and this one, I can actually do that one. Let's do that one. We'll figure out our ground next, and then we'll do a test when we're all done, make sure this is right. So this is going to be our input wire. I'm not using a heat shrink because there's no reason to. It's just going to be 3 wires of madness. So someone's going to question my form. Could do this, could do that, blah, blah, blah. This particular method has served me well. And I'm left with the ground. Trace, start with pull this connector, identify the ground, it's 1015. It's not hard, I've got the ratchet assembly here somewhere. What a pain in the neck. Let's do it. What the heck? So all of this comes about because basically, when I did my coyote swap, they had a wire you ran from the control pack to the fan to actually activate the fan. And they were using a relay in their power distribution block to power that fan. And while it worked, it caused a voltage drop through the power that was controlling your PCM. It caused the engine to kind of stumble because there was a lot of juice to be running through that power distribution block. And you don't have that kind of stumble on a 4.6 or even a 3.8 here. It just powers up because it's running juice directly from lines that were dedicated for the purpose for the factory. So here's your connector, and if you can see, it actually has the pins labeled 1 through 12 here, okay? And then we're looking for pin 15, so here's 13, 14, 15. And I'll bet that line is clearly identified. It's a black and white. And we can find out pretty quickly if it's chassis ground or not by just doing a quick number on it. Okay. Just want to move space. We can run continuity tester if we're really ground or not. So this one. Alright, so we'll go over here to ground. What is that? Ground. Okay, so we want this ground wire hooked up to that wire. The nice thing about you buy these I already spoke about the negative things, the coloring. I don't like the coloring. The nice thing about them is there's a socket here for this. You can replace this relay, provided you can get to it. All right, so we're going to do our final soldering here. That ground. Good. All right. Now, when this relay gets 12 volts of power from the Barra PCM, it's going to kick on the fan by overriding the signal wire from the stock PCM with 12 volts. It's going to tell the fan to kick on. So we're rigged up. Here's our signal wire. Take that thing don't want to over tighten this bolt. Very small bolt. This is one way to make sure this connector does not come loose. Love it. Yeah, this is assembled in the factory. All right. There we are. There's our relay. There's our signal wire. Let's turn the key on the motor. It's not going to start to fan. It should be good. Let's find out. We have ignition power. Fan isn't running. Fan wasn't running. We found out when you cut that wire, you don't have a fan. But now the Barra PCM comes along and says, I want 12 volts, which I can get by doing this. Now I'm overriding, you heard it run, the factory signal with one wire. That's what we would do it. Wish I'd have done this on my Coyote swap. Would have saved me a lot of engine stumbling.
Well, the stock wiring for a 2000 Mustang V6 for a fan is pretty simple. There's a relay inside this box. This is called the CCRM. And normally the PCM requests this fan to run by signaling 12 volts along, where's that wire? This wire. Looks like a blue-gray wire. It goes to pin 14 of our CCRM. And I've intercepted that wire. I want the CCRM to work from a stock perspective. I've got the temperature sensor for the original V6 motor, or rather a replacement part for it, because I think it left with the motor. I ordered that and I mounted it to the motor where one of the coolant lines ran for the transmission. I just got an adapter and mounted that in a regular autometer sender so I could see the temperature. But I would like very much for this thing to run normally without the Barra signaling it. So this relay in the closed position without power applied runs pin number, let's get this right, 87A, and relay 30 are the numbers for a stock. This is a very common relay configuration for a 5-pin relay. So with no power applied, the stock's PCM can signal my fan relay, turn on the fan. I've tested this, by the way. I've actually run it. I've got another video showing that. My power comes along through my Barra PCM wire. Here it is right here. Okay. So my PCM says, hey, I want power. And those two, that wire merges into two. Those pins are 87 and 85. So the main one, I believe, is 85 and 86 work together to say, hey, turn this thing on. So when power is applied across those two, it turns on the relay, but the power also then runs through this pin 87 and goes out through my relay 30. In other words, the PCM for the Barra or the PCM for the car can then that way run the fan. One of them is going to run the fan, and we're going to have cooling, you know. So I've tested this, all works. I just need to tuck this relay, of course, at some point. No big deal. But that's how that works. My fan wiring is complete with this setup. My Coyote PCM does not do this. My Coyote PCM runs its own power through its own power distribution block, similar to this CCRM, out to the fan, And one of the downsides of that is that when the fan kicks on, since the power is being drawn through the same wire that runs the PCM, the car kind of stumbles, and it's always annoyed me. If this works the way I think it's going to work, and I'm pretty positive I'm right on this, I could do the same setup on my Coyote swap car because it has the temperature sender running as well. I can see that it thinks that it knows the temperature of the motor. It probably does, actually. But it's just showing you, it's lying to you and telling you always that the motor is running cool until it runs past a threshold, and then it tells you, oh my God, things are overheating, which is, it's by then it's too late. One of the reasons I run an autometer gauge, I want to know how warm things are. So if this setup works, I'll run it out to that car as well. So that's my setup for a relay on this. I'm actually going to document this more like a normal electrical diagram for the wiring for the car in my open source Barra swap documentation. But I thought I'd show you a visual how this works and why. And that's why we did this. So thanks for tuning in.